Here we go. Hi and welcome to Dev Dialog. I'm your host, Liz Nix, and today my guest is Tim Wilson. Thank you so much for being my first guest, Tim. I'm so excited.
Of course. No, it's an honor. It's an honor to be in the first position.
This is something that I've wanted to do forever, and I think originally I started wanting to do it after talking with you about tech. So I'm super happy to have you here, and I think we will just go ahead and get into it.
Cool. Awesome.
Let's start with tell us about your background and how you got into tech.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So for me, my background was interesting, and I think so many people have these stories of being the person that was interested in a computer when they were 10, or somebody came home with I don't know, some weird number version of a computer. And for me, it was polar opposite. I was kind of doing odd jobs, painting houses, construction, and I remember I was working with somebody, or I was working at somebody's house, and it was like 10 o'clock in the morning. They were basically in their underwear, and I was like, "Oh, you don't have to work today." They looked at me with a silly look and was like, "Yeah, I'm working. I'm working from home." Now, this was a long time ago, early 2000s, but still, I had to say, "Well, okay, how are you doing that?" Because I'm over here banging nails into your wall and painting your living room. And he was like, "Oh, I went to school for tech." In this case, he was a professional PHP developer and working on some software. But we got to talking, and I was like, "Well, it's a common question, right? Well, how do I get into this?" And this is way before Free Code Camp, shout out there, and some of these other awesome resources that are available. And he's like, "Just go to college." I'm not saying that's for everybody either, but I did do that, and I went for software engineering. My goal was to be in my pajamas working at 10 a.m. Fast forward, and this is where we met. I got to meet Liz here, and she's helped me along my career quite a bit. So once again, just shout out to you. But with that, I went to an online school. I was 27, and I was tired of being the person to go get random tools out of a toolbox, and I started learning about software engineering. That's really hard. So while I was learning about that, I actually had more experience dabbling in a little bit of HTML and CSS working at an agency. And that really opened my eyes to front end and back end development. College was your basic computer science fundamentals. Java was the main focus in .NET. But this was it wasn't pre GitHub by any means, but pre mass adoption of it. So when I graduated, there was no quote unquote portfolio for me to show. I had some capstone projects. But during that time, I really started seeing the benefits of what I could get done with just the front end stack, JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. And that's been my lifeline actually for well over a decade now. So that's my start.
I think that's so cool, because that's something I'm always saying, like that HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is really it's so important to know those fundamentals, and so many people are jumping in now with React and all the frameworks that it's built on, or whatever the new language is. I think Python is huge, but so you get all these developers or that are just out of code camps, and they're not able to troubleshoot a front end layout bug.
Yeah. So and with that brings up a very interesting thing too, because there is a big debate, especially on the Twitter sphere. Is college worth it? And everybody's different, and some people's communication skills are on par and all of that. But for me, it wasn't. So for me, I didn't really get the technology. A lot of my education has came from some form of an online course I've purchased, talking to wonderful people such as yourself, or just kind of going through a YouTube video. But what I did get was that day-to-day online communication. A lot of people get this now just from social media, but what you just said there that stood out was exactly, and I've heard it from so many people, I'm gonna spend 10 grand, go to a boot camp, get out, get a job. It's always 100,000. It's always like that sweet number, when it's like, really, depending on where you live, like aim for 50, aim for 50 sweet, 100's real sweet, but 50 sweet. And then it's like a real difficult language where somebody who's good at Python or somebody who's really good at a framework such as React or Vue, you know, you're going to be competing with those people that have those refined skills. Not to say not to do it, but in so many interviews I've been, you know, you'll say oh, I'm a lifelong learner, where it's like in development, I feel like you always have to be tinkering. You know, it's like, oh, ABC, always be closing. Well, you always better be tinkering, whatever that acronym would be. You know, ABT in this case. But yeah, so yeah, good point on that though.
Mm-hmm. I think that there are cases where some kind of technical school makes a lot of sense. I think like a CS degree, especially now, can go a long way. But I know I went to a university, and it gave me a lot of background in like art, fine art, digital art, and all kinds of things. Like, and then my web development class was, here's how you export from Macromedia Fireworks into Dreamweaver to make, like, so there was no coding at all in college. But since I got out, like, I've just been like, I always learn on the job better than anywhere else, even with any sort of online course. Sometimes I'll buy a particular online course to help me with something I'm doing on the job, and that's how it gets really cemented. And so you're absolutely right. You got to get in at the ground floor,
right?
You know, rather than spend the money on the school, get the lowest level entry level job you can and start making, you make like 30K a year.
I love that. Yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah, like take what you can get. And you see so many like leak code and you know, coding questions in general during the interviews. And I mean, we have moved past you know, you're stuck in the bottom of a blender with a nickel, how are you going to get out, for sure. But the computation some jobs require a very high level of IQ. I don't know what you would say, computer literacy or something, where that may play a role. But when you come straight out of my situation, online school, Phoenix, you know, or something along that, if you don't have a good foundation, you need to maybe supplement a course after you get in. But looking for, I mean, that's the thing too. I guess it could be a reverse argument here, where they're like, you really don't see any junior developer positions. Nobody's like, hey, you're new and fresh, we want to hire you, because they want somebody with skills already. I think that's why the side hustle gig has come alive so far. Hard to do with React and Vue and even Python personally. And that's why I honestly fell into the more front end area, because you can actually develop kind of customer facing websites and things like that quite easy. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's people out there developing applications for folks, but it's a little different.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So when I met you first, when you came to work at that agency, you had like a very humble attitude.
Thank you.
And I thought that was but you were just the example of somebody who's like, I haven't done this before, but it's what I want to do, so give me whatever you've got. And do you want to talk a little bit about how that role helped shape what you did after?
Oh, of course. And I remember that interview like yesterday. And I think that's another thing too, is how I approached that was just being brutally, you're being very vulnerable at that aspect though. Cause yeah, I didn't know anything. And you know, that role, what I took from that role was dipping my toes into front end web development, because working on the team, you know, you were one of the top developers. I would ask you a bunch of questions, and anybody who's going to work in an agency is going to find out you have to wear all hats and be a jack of all trades kind of thing. So I ended up having an opportunity to be on the back end of websites to do SEO, which has been something I've always done. That's where that started, by the way, too. Just to the audience, not to you. You already know that. But while I'm in the back end of these sites and somebody's like, hey, we need to change a button, we need to add this, it's like I'm not getting some fancy ticket, putting it in a Monday.com and all this is a long time before any of those things. Basecamp was there. But I didn't even, a lot of times my tasks weren't even involved with a Basecamp note. It was just like, you're doing SEO, but while you're in there, go ahead and change this. And that sparked my curiosity. I remember that was codeacademy.com. It just came out. And like everybody listen, I most definitely am I got my education and I was getting it at that time, but I saw the gamification on the horizon. And I remember, I'm plugging a lot of stuff here, but like, the Code Academy, I remember seeing, oh, cool, this is kind of play as you go kind of thing. And then I saw Code Wars, right? And that was like kind of a video game where you're learning JavaScript functions and, things like that. It was funny. All of those items didn't really help me with my day-to-day. It was more the HTML and CSS because that's what I was working in. Like a lot of my implementations for SEO was were in WordPress sites, but I could see how being an SEO, but having the limitations of like, I don't know how to put in a internal link. I don't know how to even add an image in the code. Like if there wasn't a WYSIWYG, it wasn't happening. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to do that. And at the same time, I'm paying for an education where I'm supposed to be learning these things. So it made me a little extra excited. But that role, that actually shaped my entire where I'm at now.
Nice. Yeah, I wondered if you wanted to talk more about like SEO and how that has developed as a skill set.
Yeah. So like I said earlier about people going and I'll actually veer straight off into my side, you could call it a side hustle of my lifeline, whatever. So SEO from that agency, I saw a need for so many people needing to be able to be found via local search. And I coined myself as a technical marketer, technical SEO. And the reason why is because I don't need a developer to do any kind of implementations of a snippet or to change something. I can get the job done. And that's where, for me, SEO and development really kind of marry. Back when I was working with you, like a decade ago, it was all about just filling out like listing submissions and making sure you had these like core fundamentals. And as every algorithm has came out, it seems like every week in the last decade, things have changed, but the fundamentals are still there. And for me, I've really been able to leverage my ability to not need a client, or even if wherever I've been working, to reach out to a developer to really just implement anything. Because you might be working with some JSON code. It's like, all right, well, how does that work? I understand how it works. Even something as simple as like an XML sitemap. These are, schemas is with the JSON code, and the XML is where your sitemaps living. And just not being, or the robot TXT, everybody's like real weird about the htaccess, all these files. I'm just throwing names out there. But if you talk to somebody who's in an agency, they're like, I don't touch any of those things. Like I don't. And for me, I'm like, let's dabble, let's dance. And it's really over and over and time again. My SEO positions have been provided to me because I have a developer background. So it's like, I feel like so many people are very siloed, and like I have to go work for the big FANG, and everybody's going to be working at home with a stand-up desk and floor to ceiling windows and have a YouTube channel. When back in our day, it was like, how cool could you make your cube, right?
Yeah,
there's that one website that it was like listentoamovie.com. And
yeah.
I tell people about that all the time. It was like, it would make your screen look like it was a spreadsheet, and you could listen to Star Trek to Friends, and it was just audio. I remember telling people that weren't, and I was like, you don't live in a cube, man. Like now you have Spotify playing or YouTube videos going, and you're at home, so your boss isn't walking by your cube either. But that was a different life. It was a different time.
Yeah.
That is not necessarily reality now. I go to the office 3 times a week now, but it's not that. So. But the evolution of SEO for me, though. There you go.
Yeah, for sure. So what are you working on now?
So my current role is a technical marketing role, and this would probably be the most technical marketing role that I've had yet. And that would be doing SEO and also CRO. So that would be search engine optimization and then conversion rate optimization. And the reason why I said it's the most technical is because SEO, yeah, we're looking at content. We're seeing how the organic SERPs, are performing. But the CRO is more A/B testing. I have to have a hypothesis. I have to report on conversion trends. It's weird. You kind of become a data scientist in SEO. And once again, it kind of plays back in. You're like, okay, cool. This has nothing to do with development. False, because you have to be able to write some sweet regex to get what you're looking for in so many either pieces of software or in a spreadsheet. You have to be able to understand a formula, and you write your formula to get what you're looking for in your spreadsheets. So it's like somebody might coin that as, oh, that's in Excel or Google Sheets. It's like, well, yeah, it's computing is what it is. So once you learn those fundamentals, you can cross-reference things or relate them across so many platforms. So just one more time, superpower from developer to marketer. But my position right now, it's, I'm very thankful for the opportunity, but not to branch off into the interviewing process, but it takes a long time. So anybody that might be listening, don't get discouraged if you're either trying to get your first job or your 10th job. Like, we're all on a struggle bus out there. So I am happy with what I have, and I'm looking forward to the future. It's actually a fairly new position of mine. I came from an agency. From about 3 months ago, I worked there for 2 years, and I was an SEO strategist. So I was the SEO strategist, but I was the WordPress guy. So it was like, anytime somebody would be like, I don't know, it broke, give it to Tim. I'm like, this is not in my job role. But they're like, but we know, and I'm like, I do. It's like I'm part of a secret club or something. I know there's people out there that are like, I don't even touch WordPress sites. If I really needed something like that, I'll use a Wix or some WYSIWYG form builder. Like, I'm out here building, some major application that's pulling in this information from here and using all these APIs. I am not that talented yet, but it's something, once again, to go back to the always be learning, or always be tinkering, my own phrase. I still have plenty of opportunities during the weekend where maybe I pop open one of those courses like we were talking about to help just refine my skills, sharpen my blade a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that, like, WordPress, it's nice that you touched on that, because it's grown up the same as we have, and now it's in a place where, like, it's not if you're developing for the block editor, you're working in React now. So
True.
it's kind of crazy, and I don't know, I think it's not on its way out the way people tend to think it is.
Oh, I totally
Yeah.
agree. And what you said right there, like, there's so many React developers out there that are like, you don't have a portfolio, and what are you going to do? Build another to-do list, or because you're trying to build something maybe for your getting a job. You're like, you don't realize that you could totally customize a WordPress site and be like, this was all done with my knowledge of React.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a really good point. For me, I've done that with PHP. Everybody jokes it's either like PHP got me a Lambo or PHP is the worst language ever.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, really, it's amazing what you can do. You could create a SaaS product for somebody based off of your knowledge for PHP and all that kind of stuff. And now in this case, React as well. It'd be interesting if there was a lightweight version of WordPress that came out using Vue just for smiles and giggles.
I mean, I'm sure you could build it. You could probably do something like that. Maybe take a Contentful and shove it in a Vue project and make your own sort of. I mean, it wouldn't be WordPress; it would be your own thing. But it's there. It's always, you can make anything you can think of.
Don't knock it till you try it. Anybody out there, don't knock it till you try it.
I know. I wonder. It makes me kind of want to look it up and maybe like put it in the show notes if if a SaaS like that exists already, or a Vue flavored WordPress is a thing.
I've done some pretty cool stuff in WordPress. I mean, there was I built this one thing where you'd fill out a form. Depending on what you answered on the form, it would put you in this certain bucket on the website. And then it was like a financial course. This isn't mine. This is somebody paid me to build this. And that you would pay for a monthly subscription. And then what they did was they basically had, it was like a path, right? You would go down the learning path, kind of self-guided or whatever. And when I built it, I was like, okay, so it's a CRUD application on the basis of the users. We're taking payments. I was like, we're, filtering and displaying media based on variables. It's like, this is complex, like, this is something that normally I personally think would have been done, you name it, on something that wasn't WordPress, but the customer was happy and they're still using it to this day.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it's a versatile ecosystem. You can do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. That sounds awesome. a whole what do you call it? The LMS,
Yeah.
learning management system, and
Yeah.
then yeah, with the ability to take payment and the localization, personalization, that's huge.
And that's exactly what it was. So it was like a LMS plugin, and like so you're like, okay, you're using a plugin, you're not building it from scratch. You still have to configure things, and you have to understand. Yeah, you have to understand APIs. You have to understand all these things. I was trying to get an email to work 2 weeks ago, and I had to set up a Google Cloud account and then hook it into an API just so the Gmail wouldn't look like spam. And I'm like, that's not a small task. And of course, there's a plugin out there you could pay $75 a month for, but I'm not going to do that. Like, I got into the weeds. Person's happy. They get paid much, but either way, it was fun.
That's actually really cool. That like happens all the time. You get into the weeds and excuse me.
It's the season. It's the season. Season of
yeah,
seasons.
it's true. And like it's like here in Texas, we keep getting false spring and then it rains again. So we just had a thunderstorm last night and now it's like, I don't know, it's all over the place. The weather's crazy. But yeah, so I wanted to ask like what else is going on, like that email thing, super interesting. Like what kinds of other things are happening in your work world that are fun challenges?
So this was I'll kind of touch on AI a little bit here. So I was given a fun fact. We both worked on this project a little bit a couple months ago, but I was given a once again WordPress site, but it was a total custom build, and it was using custom fields, and I couldn't really build anything from scratch, so I had to just get in there, roll up the sleeves, and just build, right? So we're talking the stack, HTML, CSS, JS, and PHP. But it was amazing to me how I used AI not to create the code, but to help me work out my ideas. I guess in this case, it would have been my rubber duck, which I still have questions about the rubber duck. Like, why isn't it like a teddy bear? I don't know. Maybe because they're small and you can keep them on your desk and talk to them. I guess if I had my own rubber duck, it would be my little Batman. I don't even know if we can see this here in the screen.
Oh, there we go. You got it to focus. It's adorable.
My little Batman. So where I'm going with this though is I utilize AI to really create, I had to do a custom navigation. I had to make a slider. I had to do things that I knew how to do, and I've done them many times, but I wanted to see if maybe there's another way I could go about it. Now, so many times this might be a conversation that I hit you up for. Maybe I did actually hit you up for this particular project, but not everybody has colleagues. And it was cool because there's even in the SEO world, there's people who are using these AI tools to do their job, not recommended. But then there are people like myself who like to use them to get a second opinion or maybe clean something up. I'm notorious for writing sloppy code. So when I drop it in there and I'm like, make it look pretty, it didn't do anything for me. It's using what I put in there, but it organized it for me and it made it legible. And now whoever may uncover my code in the future is going to see something that's at least legible. So that's that project. The reason why it's interesting, though, because you did ask that, was really implementing the use of AI so heavy on that. It's a web development project that is still going on because the client's making me totally rebuild it. Sad tear, whatever. But this was all done on the weekend, weekends, side hustle, and I've learned so much from it. And my technical marketing role has nothing to do with that. But what's cool is at the drop of a dime, you never know what's happening in the work market and what might happen to you. So you always got to be ready. And I am thankful for projects like that challenge me, but seeing how I can use AI to help me get things done either better or maybe just quicker in terms of me not being stuck. I wrote some bad PHP. I looked at it for 2 days. I cried a little bit. And then I plugged it in to ChatGPT and was like, what's wrong here? And everybody knows the next part of the story. It was like, it was missing a semicolon or a bracket, right? And I'm like, oh my God, this was 2 days, a Saturday and Sunday gone. I'll never get back. I refused to do it. And then I did it. I was like, okay, cool. All right. And then it gave me a long explanation, which I didn't care about. I put the bracket in, I think, and I just was like on to the next one.
Yep. I want to tell a cute story about a syntax error on my side. Just this morning, I realized, working on Netlify with Next.js, we have Netlify functions, and
Oh, cool.
essentially you write them, they run, they run at runtime, right? And so you can basically anything that you don't want to handle on the client side because it's got like sensitive authentication or whatever, you can put it in a function, but then you have to call your own code from your own code as if you're fetching a third-party API, or like, you know, you
Are those
fetch
serverless?
like you're
Serverless functions?
serverless functions. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I've heard about them. And Netlify, I mean, that
I mean,
is,
it's just a good platform.
yeah.
It's got a lot of great tools, and so that like Netlify functions are their particular flavor of a serverless function, but it is just like Lambda function, Lambda compatible. You don't have to be on Netlify to use it like this. But so I fetching that data in order to do anything dynamic, I have to send the dynamic variables as headers. And I didn't realize that when I make the request, it changes those headers so that no matter what type of case I put them, like user ID, lowercase u, capital I, it's going to change it to capital U, lowercase I. Like
Oh,
whatever the
Lord.
word is, it's title case. So it's like, yeah. So I had a bunch of variables, and I had like, it was like, why isn't it working? I was like, oh, I had to open up the network tab and see what the headers were getting passed as. And so like, yeah, first letter capital, all the rest lowercase.
That's crazy.
It
So,
was
okay,
insane.
not to segue, but you said network tab. Another,
Mm-hmm.
I'm out here just throwing examples. I'm sure other people that will be on the show will be more just heavy tech. But so I had to set up enhanced conversions recently at work. This was a technical marketing win because of my developer knowledge. And what that is, you go into Google Ads, you click a couple boxes, but then you have to go into Google Tag Manager. And essentially what we're doing here is you're trying to capture the email field. So if somebody comes onto the site and they leave, but then they come back like within a 30-day period, you could see that from your ads platform. Well, to do that, you have to write some JavaScript code to capture that field or any other field, and then make that a custom variable. But when you do stuff, testing is really not talked about much, right? Like you can make hello world show up on the screen and you may show it in the console. But when you're doing things more complex, even as complex as just grabbing an email field, which isn't hard, you have to know where to look. And I had a coworker sitting next to me while I was going through this, and I'm not saying it happened in 20 minutes, but to see the process and then hear when I was done, I would have known where to start with that. And I'm like, cool. It made me feel good, right? It's those long hours of maybe like, reading a blog you don't really want to read, or watching a video that's kind of boring and you'd rather watch some crazy conspiracy theory thing like I like to do sometimes. Instead, it was an opportunity to kind of shine based on my developer knowledge. But I used the network tab to kind of see what was going on. And then, I obviously did use console log to make sure I got the correct email.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it is a little bit of wizardry when you're sitting next to somebody who's either new in tech or, I don't know. I've heard that you're not supposed to call people non-technical contributors, but that they are. It's not saying that what they do is any less valuable or relevant. But yeah, it's one of my favorite things is showing people what I'm working on and seeing them get interested. Like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. So that's awesome that you had that experience.
And you've done that for me so many times. I've reached out and asked how, and you're quick to break it down. And everybody talks about having a mentor, and I think mentors are great, but obviously just having your own community, and it doesn't have to be who's ever trending on Twitter, but just having somebody with kind of, they're trying to do the same thing. Maybe you're both new and you don't know much, but you can kind of say, hey, is this a little weird, or what do you think about that? I think that goes a long way.
And sometimes just talking through a problem out loud is really helpful. And then you can celebrate your wins if you figure it out with that person and they kind of know what you've been dealing with.
It's like a human rubber duck in that
Yeah,
case.
exactly. That talks back or quacks back.
Yeah, quacks back. I like that. I like that.
Yeah. Um, awesome. So you did touch on AI a little, and I'm curious, have you what do you think is going to happen to our industry as AI gets more intelligent, especially given like just this week they launched Devin, the fully AI uh, developer, so to speak.
Well, I think looking at AI in general as an asset instead of, so many people are like, it's going to take over my job. Like you still have to prompt it, right? I'm not going to lie. If it gets to a point, you're like, hey, I want to make an app that does X, Y, and Z, and it needs to take users, and I need to have a testing framework set up, and we're going to use React, and we're going to use this database, and you hit start, and it goes, and it gives you the end result. It's not going to be perfect, and you're going to become a professional. You can become a professional debugger, because that's really what AI is never going to get. It's giving you information based on the information it's been fed. And for that reason alone, I don't think that it's going to take jobs, but it's going to allow juniors, believe it or not, to be up there with senior devs. And the reason why is that small semicolon, or bracket that's missing, that a senior dev is like, oh man, this has happened to me so many times. Like, it's just that, or you misnamed the function, or I always spell the word function wrong, which is weird. And I know text editors will actually point that out for you, but if you're wondering and you're not doing it right, you throw it in, boom, it tells you. So it's almost going to kind of like even the playing field a little bit. There's still going to be a very big requirement for people who've seen a lot of things and can help guide. So in my thought, it's going to just be more productive. You're going to have less like moments coming to tears because you just don't understand something. And instead, you're going to have, it's going to like Iron Man, right? It's like the suit. It's your Iron Man suit. You can sit there and ask it a question and get an answer and keep it moving. Or Alfred and Batman. I have a bunch of analogies that have to do.
I love the analogy. I love the analogy of an Iron Man suit. I think that's very, very astute.
And I do get the fear. I will say, I do get the fear, but it's like, if you're that scared, are you doing your job that well? Right? Because it's like, there's some people who are just code that you just go work, you expect just to write some code, you put it in GitHub, somebody reviews it, then you post it to the main, and then boom, there we go. I did my job today. I deployed it. Well, it's not like in my new marketing job. Like, I've had marketing jobs in the past where it's like I just show up and XYZ, I do my job and I go home. Where now I have to get creative. And I think that's what AI is going to do, is it's going to make development teams, not individuals, have to get a little more creative, or give them the opportunity to get more creative. Because what I just talked about was, it's going to give you a little bit of your time back. That not thought-provoking time, that's good and you come up with great ideas, but that wasted time when you're just not in the zone. And you're just like, man, I'm just not feeling this right now. Why isn't this working? And then you're like, cool, I'm maybe while you were writing it, that's not going to happen because you're using Coconut, and you didn't make that silly mistake, writing TypeScript or something like that. Instead, you're locked in and you keep your queue going.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely like a productivity tool. Yeah. And one of the things that just sort of occurred to me as you were talking about, like, deciding on your stack and your database and just picking the pieces and hitting start, we're already doing that.
Right.
Most modern projects are going to start with a series of terminal commands, and you get to watch it basically set up this like robust scaffolding for whatever your project is. And so it's going to be a more performant, it's going to be less prone to bugs because it's like tested, and it's like you still have communities writing these softwares, communities or teams, right. Or like, I mean, so some are going to be better than others, right? I'd rather and then there's still bugs in them sometimes, like even the big guys, like even Netlify, there was a bug in their CLI. that you kind of had to do a little bit of a hack to work around. And this came up months ago, and it's still not like fixed, but everybody's like, okay, the workaround's working good enough, so keep going.
It happens to everybody, right? And that's, that brings up another good point too, and it kind of goes back to that. You might have to be better at debugging things because, and one cool thing about AI is it's probably built or based around best practices. I've built a couple of my own GPTs for myself, and no, they're not to do code, but like, just kind of reviewing content is one example. And like, I have sources online that I lean in terms of reviewing content, grammar wise, tone, intent. And, I gave it that as the set of best practices. So something that's being developed, Devin, Copilot, you name it, like there's best practices that are baked into that. And because those are there, when you ask it to do something, it's going to be able to do a good portion of all of it. But once again, it's like it's going to allow you to stand up an application a lot quicker, I think. Maintaining it though, that's going to take, I still think that's going to take a little bit more thinking, and talent and understanding, because you're right. Yeah. You have to, in SEO, we have a big problem with people just using AI to create boatloads of content, and they don't review and they put it on the internet.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's horrendous. But there's one thing that you could do. You can use it to give you a base layer. You edit it. You have to read it. So it's like you ask it to create 1,000-word blog post. You have to read the 1,000 words and actually go into like 4th grade literature mode. Teacher crossing stuff out that doesn't make sense. Now, some people might be like, I could just do it myself as quick. And I bet you there are developers out there that are like, I don't need to have AI write some code for me that then I have to go fix. And that's another thing too, right? Like AI is going to probably write something in a very specific way. It doesn't mean it's the best. It's just getting the job done. So that would be another way where somebody's like, it's going to take my job. Well, if you can get the computation firing quicker because not to use this and use that instead, that's job security.
Yeah, for sure. I think okay, I had a really good thought. Okay, now I remember what I was going to say. So, everything that the AI is doing, whether it's writing a blog post or generating application programming code for you, all of that is stuff that the AI learned because of stuff that people have done.
Correct.
Right. We wrote the language, we wrote the AI, and there's something in my career that I've always considered one of those aphorisms that makes me feel connected to the bigger community as well as the history of the profession, and that's we stand on the shoulders of giants.
I love it.
Like the people who made these languages in the first place. And now AI is standing on the shoulders of those giants, and we get to stand on AI's shoulders.
I love that's now that yeah, you should write that down so it doesn't slip out. That's a perfect way to put it. That is, and why is it a perfect way? Because it lets anybody that might be concerned with that, you think about somebody who just joined a boot camp, or somebody who's going through college and they feel kind of, well, this isn't even going to be around in 5-10 years because of robots. And it's like, no, like you're just going to be able to do your job better is all it is, and get more done and be more efficient. And yeah, when some company gets a seed round of $10 million to build something, and it's like you got 25 developers, do you only need 10? Maybe. And then somebody's like, well, what about those? Well, this means 10 people are getting the job done. I think that's happening too. And not to segue into like the tech layoffs that are going on, but I think what's happening is the talent pool is so vast that mass hiring was happening in those last 5 years. And I think what's happening now is they're kind of either getting more efficient, so they're using less people. They, kind of got too big for their britches, or, honestly, they're just trying to pick the best candidates possible to keep, and, got to let other people go and kind of incubate and get better.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be it'd be weird to not mention it, because that's
Right. Yeah.
it's a big part of the backdrop of what we're doing now as a like a global community of people in tech. And one of the things I've seen is like um, a junior front end web developer role is going to have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of applicants.
100%. And if that's not disheartening, what is, right? Like, come on,
Well, the thing is, then if you get very specialized, so you can become like a NetSuite specific engineer, and then you're only competing with 8 to 10 people.
Right.
So I think specialization is super key. Like if you're getting started in this space right now and you're just learn it broadly, but look for those things that are like that really get you pumped about doing this, and like dive into them and like specialize if you can. If you make your brand on something that not a lot of people are doing but is highly valued, even PHP right now is a bigger deal than React. Like React developers are a dime a dozen, or
Well, and
price is going down every day.
Chasing that shiny new object, right? Like you brought it. So like if you're Shopify, you could just pick Shopify, become a Shopify expert in terms of the liquid code and just rocking it, right? PHP, it's a legacy language, but it's still fresh. It's powerful, right? I feel like new version of it's coming out it's kind of like Google updates, like every month you get a new version of PHP you got to update to. So yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, niche, find it, specialize in it, and know that you're going to be a lot better off. I saw jobs. Well, there's a recruiter that I follow, and he was looking for .NET specialists. And somebody's like, you just bring that up to somebody randomly that's doing an online course. Like, what? Like, what are you talking about? You C#, C++, all that. And it's like .NET, and you're like, if you're good with it, you're good with it. Same thing even with Java. Like there's a lot of companies out there. It's just like trying to get your parents, grandparents, old neighbor, somebody to try some new food. And they're like, no, I'm doing my own thing. And it's like, well, you can try something new. That's how companies are. They don't want to change that new technology. It's too much of a lift for their team to do that. So if you know how to code something that's been around in quite some time, there's a good chance that you can get a foot in the door. And they like younger folks, because the 50, 60-year-old that's been there for 30 years is probably about to retire.
Yeah. It's interesting, like what you just said about like with that, how Shopify learning Liquid right now, Shopify is splitting into 2 tracks where they have you can fully develop a theme with Liquid and it's going to be fine, but they also have this entire ecosystem that is it's built in Remix, which is another React framework. And
they bought Remix, right?
Well, they have their brand of it that's called Hydrogen, and then and they have their host that is Oxygen, so you can really do like the modern development tech stack and hook it in there. But but there's not, those Liquid sites aren't going away, to your point. They still are going to exist. There's still going to be people who prefer that, and it's still that's one of those languages where it's actually pretty easy to learn. It's a templating language, so it's not going to be as robust as maybe something you're used to if you're coming from like a more heavy programming or but it is, I don't know, it's fun. It's got its limitations like anything else, but it's fun to learn and it's quick to learn, and it's something that people are still going to value.
Right.
So if you're starting off new and looking for something to pivot, that might be a really great avenue to check out.
And with that, right, like so being able to like use that remix aspect of it too. You're like, oh, I have some random projects that everybody else has done online on my GitHub. What am I going to show to these potential employers? And you turn around and you totally customize a Shopify theme and have a site, and you're not even selling real products, right? But it's up there and it's functioning. You're like, I did all this, it's kind of like a resume on a link. Like they're like, you're good. Like you're
Yeah.
good. If you can explain it and they're like, okay, you built all of this. You're like, I built it all. That's your talking points right there, because they see that you did it from concept to deployment. And of course, if you can track all this in, you know, in GitHub, have some kind of version control that supports your path. That's another benefit. That's one of my weaknesses is I've never had a chance to really work on a team. So it's like I use GitHub. I've used GitHub with you, but a lot of people, it's trendy to talk about. You know, you'll be at a hotel and see like a green and black checkered board, and you're like, it's my GitHub. And then other people are like, you know, I work for a company. You don't even get to see mine. Like I'm in there every day, but it's private, right? So I don't get to show this off.
You can make your commit checkerboard public even if the actual code is private. Just so you know.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So when people say that, and now we can be like, well, did you know? Like
there is a setting. It's like it's buried in your profile somewhere.
That's a fun fact.
You can do that. So like if you look at mine, you see my you see that I'm doing work. You just can't see what that work is.
Right. Yeah. Because there's sometimes people are like, I work for a private company. I can't show. They just don't know about that feature.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it is. You've been doing it for a long time. That's why. I think that's something to speak on too, is just as somebody who's been an aspiring developer. I'm still an aspiring developer, to be frank, right? Like I'm a technical marketer, but and that's what is it? Always empty your cup, right? We're not Bruce Lee over here, but let's throw a little Bruce Lee quote out there.
Yeah,
you know, he took it from somewhere too, but you gotta empty the cup so you can get more in it. I think that's the path in development. There's certain people out there that I look up to very much so, for various reasons in terms of their expertise, and a lot of times they're always learning.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can't stop learning. It's like you said, it's a lifelong learners, or, you know, permanent juniors.
Yeah, permanent PJ.
Forever junior. Yeah.
PJ's trying to be working in the PJs. Do you like working from home?
I do. I actually really like it. But like, I think like once a month going into the office is nice to connect with people. Maybe twice a month, you know. But like for the most part, like being able to just wake up and get to work is really nice. Or like being able to wake up early and ease into the morning, but not have that stress of that commute. 'Cause
it is stressful. You just have discipline. I'm a bum. So right now they got me coming in 3 days a week. Monday, I'm going boom, boom. You know, I'm really just answering a bunch of emails just like anybody else. Monday, right? Unless you're super responsible and you're doing that weird stuff on Sunday, but more love to you. But Friday rolls around. All right. So I've been at home Monday, got stuff done Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, worked hard till, you know, 30-minute drive back and forth, not horrible or anything. But then Friday rolls around, and you'd think like I work a 4-day work week. I can't get anything done. I'm not brushing my teeth until 3 p.m. I'm in my pajamas all day playing with my cats. And I'm like, all right, I don't know what happened. I think maybe it's all or nothing for me. Like I need to be a full remote person. And I don't have any kids. So it's like anybody out there with a family, like, yeah, that's the best thing in the world. I think it's so cool for folks that get to have more time with their family or even significant other. My wife works from home too. So it's, you know, when I am home, it's nice. It's probably what I'm doing most of the time really is hanging out with her more than, you know, my work computer. But I was just wondering, that's a big thing in the tech community too, right? Even my origin story was I saw somebody at home in their pajamas working, and this was over a decade ago. It's just, you know, that person also worked on a team of 2 and it was a tiny company. But now I think there are these kind of lavish expectations that you're going to do the boot camp, get the job. It's going to pay you a lot of money, and you'll have a standing desk with random plants in your own YouTube channel. I kind of like throw that all in there because I feel like I've talked to people and they're like, so in 6 months from now, you know, I'm going to get that job and I'm going to get that desk. I'm like, that's cool, man. I hope you do. I hope you do.
I mean, for sure. Like right now, I want to be able to get like a microphone for doing this, and then a better camera, and then like, you know, all the toys. I need a new development machine now. So yeah, It'll come. The standing desk is like way low on my list of priorities.
Right.
I
Well,
have
you
a, like
know,
a,
I think when people come on, ask them what they're using. If they use, I feel like you'll run into a 12-year-old kid and he has a podcast set up. You're like, you have a podcast? It's like, we are a Twitch stream. Ask them what they're using. You know, I'm borrowing my wife's mic today so the audience can hear me decently. But I'm normally just rolling off whatever's on the laptop. But yeah, I think you know, as the show progresses, just kind of asking what other folks are using, and it's, who knows? We'll plug the label. Maybe they'll send you something to try.
yeah. Oh man, I could dream.
It can
That's
happen.
awesome. Yeah, for sure. I think that's great. So if you don't mind, like, what is your microphone? If you want to shout out the
Yeah.
brand.
So this is. Let's see, you got the blur kind of. It's pretty cool. It
Oh,
kind of
that's
has.
adorable.
It kind of has those old school vibes, but it's Snowball Ice, and it's a blue. It's a blue microphone. I know that's the color, but it's actually the brand. So I guess Snowball Ice, but it's.
Hmm.
I don't know if my volume is going all crazy
No,
there.
it's really great. And actually, no, it came like as you were holding it up and turning it around, you didn't like
Oh,
your audio quality stayed solid. So,
awesome. Well,
oh,
hey,
is it one
maybe.
of those omnidirectional mics?
Yeah,
Like, oh,
yeah.
gotcha.
So it's kind of catching. It's catching everything in the room. So hey,
Yeah, I
Snowball
probably
Ice. Send Liz a microphone to try out.
nice, nice. Well, okay. So one more question before we wrap up here. What does the future hold for you specifically? Like, what are you hoping to get into within the next 3, 6, 12 months?
Yeah, God, great question. Um, so where I'm current, you know, always got to have a plan B. And for me, it's plan B and C, and not because I'm a worry ward or I think anything bad is going to happen. But I am trying to think ahead, but always have something cooking. And where I'm going with this one is where I work now as the technical marketer. They are a Vue shop, right? So they build their software on Vue, and I had discussed like if there's any opportunities to kind of shadow somebody. I'm not looking for a new job within the company. I'm not trying to take over, you know, somebody's tasks or anything like that. But I'm hoping that in maybe the next 3 to 6 months, I get an opportunity to kind of play around a little bit, or not play around, but kind of whether, you know, sit down. They do hackathons and stuff in my work, and just to be a part of that. You know, this is my first time in my entire life that I've actually worked at a software company. It's not like a web agency or a medical device company or something like that. So I'm hoping the 9 to 5 Monday through Friday job provides that opportunity to me. But on my personal end, I've been going through this PHP course as we've been talking about it, and it's essentially you're creating a job board. And I started this like 6 months ago. So in the next 3 to 6 months, I hope that I finish it. I you know, I'm tired of having a graveyard of courses that don't get finished, and I really do enjoy them. And maybe I don't apply them much to work, but they're fun. And that means if I'm finishing it, I have extra time, and that would be my hopefulness. So working on code at work, and then on my free time, wrapping up that PHP course.
That's awesome. I'm so excited for you that you have that opportunity at your work. Like,
Thank you.
I can't wait to hear about you how you do in those hackathons. Like,
yeah, it's you know, it's like I said, I'm sure the people that are in the room with me, that's what they're doing, and they're just trying to solve a problem. But you know, maybe I can just be a fly on the wall and learn a little something. And yeah, it kind of goes back to what I was saying, always be tinkering. So it's like always try to put yourself in a position if there's a meetup or something around and you're like, I have no business going to this meetup or even a conference, go. Real quick, last year I went to Render ATL. That is at one point in time, I think it was a React heavy conference, but there was all kinds of technology there. I got a chance to meet Ken Wheeler. Shout out to Ken. He's just such a nice person in real life, but on Twitter, he's the like funniest person walking. James Quick, great podcast there, Compressed FM. You know, got to meet some people that just really stand out to me. But we went to this conference and everybody would ask, and these are people that work in tech in some form. And I'm like, I do SEO. And I don't even work for, at that point, a software company. I was like, and they were very confused. And I was like, I'm putting myself in the mix. I got all the merch. I listened to the talks. I mean, it's a pretty growing conference. I recommend anybody go that might be in the Atlanta area. I mean, even yourself, Justin puts on a great show, but I put myself in the environment. And yeah, I left after a 3-day conference that had nothing to do with my job or what I'm doing, and no opportunities came from it other than amazing merchandise. And I met a lot of people that I look up to and follow on social media, and got to shake some hands. And I did have a notebook full of tips and tricks, though. When it came to debugging, I sat through a couple of debugging courses. There was some sweet, like, job. What was it? Oh, I forgot what it was. Nat Labrador. I forgot his full name. But anyways, essentially some new JavaScript frameworks that deal with AI and stuff like that. And there was like a Flutter talk, and I was all over the place. And like I said, none of it really like fit with what my day to day was. Oh, and last was Danny Thompson. I think somebody that's probably one of the largest people in the tech community of helping folks get jobs and understanding that, like, never stop the grind. It was a real honor to meet him, and just seeing that, asking him, hey, I'm not in tech right now, and I'd like to, and I have some background, and just to hear those words of encouragement was cool.
That's awesome. Now that you have a more technical role, has any of that like come up for you? Have you been able to use any of those debugging tips and tricks, or has it? Yeah.
So not on the job, but it's allowed me to have conversations with other developers at work, right? Like somebody could be talking about something and I'm not just a deer in headlights. Like I'm understanding what they're saying. Like I know the lingo, and I don't mean like necessarily a term, but like I'm understanding what they're saying. Maybe I watch a YouTube video. It's a complex video, but it's an empowering feeling. Just like having this conversation here, somebody who's just solely a marketer and was like, hey, I just want to talk to Liz because she's awesome, is like, I'm going to really have much to go back and forth with, but as technical as we want to get to a point with me, I'm like, yeah, I'd love to hear about it. So that's what I got from the conference, was being able to kind of expand my horizons through understanding conversations better.
That's wonderful. Yeah, communication is so important, I think, and it is a big part of really cementing your understanding of what you're doing, because when you're writing code, sometimes like, you're getting the syntax, but like once you like understand enough to where you can communicate what you're doing and be very specific about, like this parameter on this object is returning a null value and I'm expecting a string and I need to figure out how to deal with that. Like those types of words that seem like jargon to somebody not really in the sphere, but for sure. There's been times where like I'll like listen to myself talk through a problem and be like, I can't believe that sentence just came out of my mouth. Or like
that's rubber ducking. You're rubber ducking, You're
like explaining how something works to a manager or a marketing higher up, and then like first saying it like with all the developer the actual language of what it is, and then translating it to something that they can understand too is also a big skill.
Oh, they always get the Timmism when that happens. When I'm like, this thing, he does this, and then they come together and that happens. And they're like, and I'm like, it works. And they're like, all right.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, that's awesome. So cool. Well, we've been going here for about an hour, a little over, I think. So that's really cool. I think this was a good time, a good first.
I had a great time. This is awesome. It was just a real conversation, And like I said, I'm excited for the show. I'm excited to listen to some future episodes. And it's cool. I don't think enough of these shows happen. A lot of times you're going to be getting the same host, but just getting some random folks to chat about some random things is what makes it a good listen.
Yeah, that's absolutely what I want to do, is make sure I have, people on. So I'm reaching out to all my network right now to get people lined up. And on, you know, whenever I don't have a guest lined up, I might even just jump on and do some live coding for
You should.
you know,
So
20
see,
minutes.
that's another thing that I've really enjoyed too. Are all these people that are hopping on Twitch and they do some live coding. They just kind of work it out. Cassidy Williams has done that so many times. I really enjoy
Nice.
when she's done that in the past. I mean, so many other people as well. But it's just, that's great. You know, it gives so many people an opportunity. You have the chat open right there. Maybe you're stuck on something and somebody's like, they're watching, they're understanding your lingo, right? They're understanding what's going on, and they can throw you a tip and help you out. And or it's something when I'm working at home, probably on Monday, because Friday I'm not doing much. You know, I'll have that on in the background. It's just kind of like having a coworker, you know, pair programming going on without it being pair programming. So I hope to see you do that.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. And I just want to commend you on like how far you've come, because I have I've had the privilege of knowing you since you got started
Yes.
basically in your tech career, and just being able to have this conversation with you, and you have so many great insights, and just like where you've come with your career, it's very impressive. And I hope that it gives people hope really about how far you can come if you just stick with it and keep grinding.
That's right. Keep stroking. That's right. I had an old guy tell me that. He was like, "Oh, life's gonna get rough, man. Just keep stroking." I mean, I guess it sounds kind of bad, but you know what I'm saying. It's like,
Yeah.
keep going, keep grinding,
Yeah.
don't stop, just keep on moving. And it's hey, I might be in a great season right now. I got a job and all that, but that's why you're always be learning, always be tinkering, and yeah, that would be my advice for anybody.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tim. Have a great
Awesome.
rest of your day. We'll
Yes,
talk
thanks for the
again soon.
conversation. Chat
Yep.
soon. Bye.
See ya. Bye.